to another episode of the Jarring Science Club. I'm your host, Brenda, and today we're going to learn how to create our own weather tracking system by making our own thermometer to see the temperature from day to day. Once you make your thermometer, you will use your homemade thermometer to see what the weather is like every day for a month. Then you will record your results and see if there are any patterns. You can use the worksheets in your lessons to help make this process easier. Here's what you need for this experiment. A jar with a hole cut in the top. I used a nail to make this hole. If you don't have a jar that already has a hole, get an adult to help you put a hole inside of the lid of your jar. You can use a hammer and nail to do this, and it needs to be just big enough to fit a straw inside. You'll also need a thermometer, a Sharpie, some Play-Doh or clay, a straw, some rubbing alcohol, some hot water, and some food coloring or liquid watercolor. I'm using red because it kind of mimics the old mercury style thermometers. All right, let's get started. All right, here we're up close and personal to do our experiment. So the first thing that you're gonna need to do is fill up the bottom third or quarter of your jar with 50% water and 50% rubbing alcohol. I'm gonna use these two lines on here, filling it up to water to this line, and then rubbing alcohol to this line. Okay, that's my water, and now the alcohol. You don't have to use this exact ratio, but the more alcohol you put in, the more sensitive your thermometer will be. But if you put too much in, there's a possibility that your alcohol will escape out the top of your straw, which you don't want. Now that the alcohol's in the jar, I'm gonna go ahead and dye it red with my watercolors here. Give a little stir. Guess that's actually orange. Doesn't really matter the color. All right, we're gonna set this aside for now. Now you're gonna take your straw and your lid with the hole in it. If you don't have a lid with a hole, make sure to ask an adult to make it with you. I just used a big nail. You can use whatever. So then you're gonna feed the straw through the hole and make sure that the hole doesn't cut open the straw, because that will make it to where the thermometer doesn't work. Okay, that's in there. Now we need to create an airtight seal around the jar, which you can use glue or you can use Play-Doh. Sometimes the Play-Doh works, sometimes it doesn't. We're gonna start out with Play-Doh, and if that doesn't work, we're gonna move to glue. Now we wanna put it on both the bottom and the top side. So get that really nice and tight. Squish it down and around. And then do the same thing on the top. Now test out where to put it. Mine needs to be a little bit lower. You want it to touch the liquid, but not the bottom of the jar, so the liquid can move around pretty easily. That's good right there. All right, let's tighten up our seal again. Then put the lid on the jar. Then we'll see what happens. Okay, so now you can see that the alcohol has gone up. Let me zoom in on there and then you can see where it is. So there is the alcohol there. And now we can take the temperature with our thermometer and find out exactly how many degrees that is and then mark it on the jar. So I just stuck the thermometer right down into the straw so it's touching the liquid because I wanted to know how many degrees it is. According to our thermometer, that is just about 78 degrees. So now let's remove this and then we can mark the 78 degrees on the jar. Right there. This line, 78. And then depending on if it's colder or hotter, it'll either expand more or it will drop down. So I'm gonna put the mixture in the fridge really quick, and then we'll come back and see where that level is. Now this has been in the freezer for a while, so let's see what the temperature is for cold water. Looks like we got 67 degrees. Let's see where that is on. There we go. Right there. 67 degrees. And you can keep marking it for every temperature you want to track. And as the water is warming up, it's moving up higher in the straw. So we're already past our 67 degree mark. And it'll keep moving up the warmer it gets. Use your thermometer this month to keep track of the weather every day for a month and record it in your tracking worksheet included in your lesson packet. Keep watching to learn about the science behind this experiment. Here's the science. Today we're learning about how scientists track the weather and make predictions in weather patterns. We also learn whether it's possible to track weather patterns and whether or not weather even has patterns. Scientists use weather tracking to help keep communities safe and to prepare them for severe weather. And in your day-to-day life, the information we get from the weather dictates what clothes we wear, what activities we can do, and that sort of thing. Weather prediction and tracking weather patterns is an important part of living in a community. In our experiment, we made what's known as an analog thermometer. An analog thermometer works by physically changing the size of the liquid inside of your straw or your thermometer bulb, depending on the temperature in the air. The water and alcohol mixture expands when it's warmer and contracts when it's cooler. By marking where certain temperature levels are on your straw, you can get a good idea of what the actual air temperature is using your homemade thermometer in a jar. The hotter it is, the more the liquid in your straw will rise. There are more than one type of weather job. The most common job related to weather and science that you're probably familiar with is someone on TV who's known as a meteorologist. Not everyone who works as a meteorologist is on TV, but you'll often see them coming on the news if your parents watch the news, and they'll let you know what weather is coming up. But there's a lot more weather jobs than that. Here's just a few of the types of weather jobs that you can do as a scientist. You can be a meteorologist or an atmospheric scientist. These are scientists who track current and future weather conditions. Most meteorologists work either in a weather station or a lab to make predictions and track patterns in weather formations. Another weather-related job in science is a climatologist. A climatologist tracks weather patterns, but rather than tracking from day to day and week to week or month to month, climatologists track how trends in climates change over decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, and even millions of years. Climatologists are important for tracking long-term weather trends to see the effects of global warming, changes in the environment, and how weather is influenced by human or animal activity. There's also environmental scientists. These scientists study nature to determine potential threats to the environment. An environmental scientist specifically will study the effects of changes in climate and weather on people, animals, and parts of the world. What kind of weather science job sounds the most interesting to you? That's it for today. See you next time.